everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. It is Sunday on Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. I don't have my date up at the top, so I don't know what date it is.
24th.
24th of May, 2013. I'm at Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Don Baker. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Good. How the hell are you?
Just fine.
Good.
Just fine. You look a little different somehow.
Really? I don't know what you mean. I mean, I didn't quite shave down my head today, so it's a little longer than normally.
It's not quite that. It's something else.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I got glasses, but I don't have them on at the moment.
No.
Oh, there's a beard that's pink. Yeah. Although on this monitor it looks bright red, it's actually pink.
Hot pink.
As the people here can attest, it's hot pink. I was in a contest with my friends Ron, David Smalley, to raise money for Camp West Texas to send kids to summer camp and improve summer camp as well. After we got the camper ships, which are camper scholarships. I just like saying it.
Campership.
Once we got those sorted, there's additional money that's going to, improvements, canoeing and horseback riding and things like that they'd like to make the camp do. But my agreement was if I won the competition and either met my goal first or raised the most money, that I would dye my beard pink, and I have done so. I don't think I'm going to keep it this way forever because I don't think I need a trademark like that. Oh, that's the guy, the pink beard atheist guy.
Yeah. The freak, yeah.
But I like it just fine.
Well, that's a fine organization.
It is. As a reminder, after the show's over today, we'll get together and go to dinner at Threadgill's, 301 West Riverside Drive. They'll have the thing up here shortly. And this is a live call-in show. I see all the lines are already occupied. If you're on there, please hang tight. Don's going to talk to us a little bit about truth to begin with, and then we'll get to calls. So take it away.
Okay. Well, let's open with a joke. This is taken off the web. I think it's a bastardization of a better joke. Of
an Emo Phillips bit, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I was walking across a bridge one day and I saw a man standing on the edge about to jump. I ran over and said, "Stop, don't do it."
Why shouldn't I?
Well, there's so much to live for.
Like what?
Well, are you religious?
Yeah.
Me too. Are you Christian or Buddhist?
Christian.
Well, me too. Are you Catholic or Protestant?
Protestant.
Me too. Episcopalian or Baptist?
Baptist.
Wow, me too. Are you Baptist Church of God or Baptist Church of the Lord?
Baptist Church of God.
Me too. Are you Original Baptist Church of God or Reformed Baptist Church of God?
Reformed.
Oh, that's awesome. Me too. Are you Reformed Baptist Church of God, Reformation of 1879, or Reformed Baptist Church of God, Reformation of 1915?
Reformed Baptist Church of God, Reformation of 1915.
Die, heretic scum!
And he pushed him off the bridge. So that's kind of the theme of the show today is the notion of truth. There are 33,000 Christian denominations around the world, depending on how you count, and all of them claim to have the truth. And usually when they talk about the truth, it's in all uppercase to make it even better. So that we're going to be talking about the truth as seen by these religious claims versus what might be more of the colloquial truth. There's lots of denominations. They all claim to have the truth, but there's a lot of disagreement among them. There's Unitarian versus Trinitarian, nature of heaven or hell, the path to heaven, or the sins, what sins are worse than the other, the nature of God, the nature of Jesus, even whether Adam had a belly button. They've argued about that because it's kind of off the script. So typically there's a sect. It goes along and everybody's happy, and then there's some sort of internal disagreement, and then they divide in half. You're seeing that right now with the Episcopal Church and the gay rights issue or gay clergy issue. They're having a schism, and then there's two churches. It's like a little speciation event, almost. And when you throw all the Abrahamic religions in the mix, Judaism and Islam, you get a huge amount of disagreement. And so I want to talk about truth today, and what does truth look like? What does a truth look like when you've got it? And let's look at the failures of holy wars as a resolution tactic, which was used for many years, and let's take a look at religious tolerance as another resolution tactic, which is another failure. So what does the truth look like? Well, if you're given a math problem, say 55 times 102, you have to do a little bit of work. You put some effort into it, and you arrive at the answer 5,610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610. 610 And so there's an event, there's a time associated with that. And then also, the answer doesn't change afterwards, right? Once you have the truth, that number doesn't change over time. Well, when Christians say, "Oh, I have the truth," or "My sect has the truth," I ask them, "When was the exact date that your sect arrived at the truth?" And they often don't know. They often don't even understand the question. It's a simple question. You know, when did that happen? And how is it that when you took the lies of your parent sect, which you think is false, and added a few more, and how did you end up arriving at the truth? So in other words, 1.4 million wrongs plus 5 don't make a right, or do they? You're making that claim when you've arrived at the truth, taking the history of your sect. And also, has that truth changed since that moment in time? You know, so if it has changed, then it was wrong before, it's wrong now, and either way, it's wrong, right? So is the truth mutable? So these sorts of religions don't tend to pass these sorts of tests or these sorts of questions. When we do this in science, you know, we put some work in, we learn something, we build on that, and we move forward. So these questions tend to show that what they're calling truth is really more like what Colbert calls truthiness. And he says it used to be that everyone was entitled to their own opinion but not their own facts. Now that's not the case anymore, he says. Facts matter not at all, perception is everything. So religious truth, in all caps, is just another name for faith. And we know that they've never really had the truth, right? Because religious sects always are fighting among each other, and they end up with, in the worst case, holy wars between them. And if either side had objective evidence, they would simply present it, and everybody would say, "Oh, yes, of course you're right," or "Of course that's the case." Or if only there were some higher authority that they could just consult and get their answer. But there's no objective God that's answering the prayers of believers, at least consistently across sects. And the Bible is little more than a Rorschach test for the morally challenged. You can find whatever you want in there. Jeff calls it the great big book of multiple choice. So none of these things are working. And so the religions and sects have traditionally resorted to killing each other. And we've ended up with a lot of holy wars throughout history, and millions of needless deaths. And there's a biblical quote quite relevant to that, and that is, by their fruits ye shall know them. Matthew 7:16. That's one of the ways we know we can trust that the religions are what they are, by their holy wars. So in the Crusades of the 11th and 13th centuries, there was a success of sorts. They exterminated the Cathars. And so that was one of the ways in which they actually were successful in getting rid of the other religion. And there's a famous quote from that time: "Kill them all, God will know his own." So that's what we have out of there. The Jews have been persecuted for millennia, culminating in the Holocaust. The 30 Years' War in Europe in the 1960s was Protestants and Catholics.
In the 1600s.
1600s? Oh, I'm sorry, 1600s. I said the wrong thing. It actually exterminated 1% to 2% of the world's population at the time. So, yay religion. The French wars of religion were also the Protestants and Catholics. The conquest of the Americas in the 1500s was springboard off the holy wars in Spain between Islam and Catholicism. These wars killed millions and has had a strong religious undertone. And much of the ongoing tension in the Middle East is due to all of this too. And so it's ongoing. Maybe it's not quite as bad as it used to be, I'm not so sure. But it's an obvious failure. So even religious leaders have figured out this is an obvious failure, and holy wars. And so the question for Christians is, how many people have to die for you to figure out that this is a con, that this is BS? So that's one for Christians. So, holy wars also prove the claim you hear from Christians about human life being sacred is nothing more than a marketing tool for the dumb, for the idiots. You know, if you look at all the murders that Christians and other religions have done all through the years, the claim that human life is sacred is an obvious fraud. So, but there's a new tactic since middle of the 20th century or so. And what do you do with failure? You invent a new tactic. Well, the new tactic is tolerance. And it's based on this idea of judge not and you shall not be judged, Luke 6:37. And it's basically whatever you want to do is fine with me. Don't complain about me and I won't complain about you. It's sort of a collusion, if you will. And it's similar to this idea of Daniel Dennett pointed out in his book, Breaking the Spell, of belief in belief. So as long as you believe something, that's okay. I think it's just another name for gullibility. And this fails in two ways. One way is religious tolerance just masks the problem of religious evil. So Catholics tolerate the rapture snuff porn industry promulgated by Protestants. Say that 3 times fast. Protestants tolerate the Catholic pedophilia scandal and its systematic cover-up, and nobody goes to jail and nobody really is sort of pointed out as really awful. Other scams are allowed to thrive, like the prosperity gospel scam or televangelist bilking the gullible, and we're all paying taxes to support all this. So the world is a worse place because of religions tolerate the evils of other religions. So this tolerance hasn't worked out, especially for the non-religious. And as a result, a religious society are more dysfunctional and have more social ills than other societies. Another way in which tolerance fails is religious groups will try to get together under the banner of ecumenicism or tolerance, and they usually are there to gang up on somebody else, often the Jews or the atheists. And this happened during the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center was supposedly geared against the infidels. Supposedly the attackers were going after the infidels, and not people of the book. I don't know if you heard that phrase during that time. But it was an attempt to mitigate any potential holy war with Christianity at the expense of so-called non-believers. So we're really going after those non-believers and not the Christians, and so everything's okay. And the U.S. Christians accepted that sort of message, I think. So the conclusion, what can we learn from Christianity's claims of truth? Well, there's no underlying evidence or objective reality to such claims. It doesn't pass the sniff test. Religious infighting has needlessly killed millions, and religious tolerance is the supposed solution to that problem. Just masks religious evil and thuggery, and so it's a failure of Christianity, and it's a failure of really all religions. And there's so much failure and so few gods. Anyway, that's it for today.
And yet there are thousands of gods.
Yes, yeah. So let's take callers, unless you had some comments.
No, there's some. I don't want to hold up any callers. At some point, I actually have some questions about the book thing, because I had a slightly different take on it, but it doesn't matter at this point.
Okay.
As a reminder, after the show's over, there's dinner at Threadgill's. The address is on the bottom. We can't tell you what to do, but if you happen to show up there might be some people from here who are there.
Yeah.
The other thing is I started to put together, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm doing now that I'm no longer president of the ACA. Mainly I'm focusing on my actual job, the one that I get paid for.
I'm sure they like that.
Well, we're going through a difficult time, but that's neither here nor there. I'm putting together a video series that covers a lot of different things. One of the things that it's going to cover is truth, this idea of truth. And is there truth that we can actually access, and to what extent? What are the limitations, the definitions of belief and knowledge, but getting to truth being that which accurately conforms to the facts of reality. It runs into some trouble because we have different subjective experiences within reality.
It's hard,
and yet the truth of your math claim, 55 times 120 or whatever it was, is the sort of truth claim, the sort of thing that we can be absolutely certain about, and it's because it's the foundations of math are the logical absolutes.
There's a solid foundation there, right?
And so, what else could we know truth about, and is it knowable? And it's one of the reasons why I pointed out last week, and I'm sure I'll have to point it out many other times, is that science doesn't get you to truth. Science doesn't make truth proclamations. Science gets you to tentative acceptance of models that are the best description based on the current evidence. It's not a pronouncement of truth. And so, you were mentioning how religions change. And the mere fact that something changes is not necessarily negative. I think religions, many of them, have improved. I don't know that they've gotten any closer to truth or accuracy, but perhaps some of them are less harmful than they used to be.
Right, they're less toxic, perhaps. Yeah.
But and so it's kind of a good thing. But so I'm doing some videos along that front. But we've got callers on the line. Let's see what we can talk about today. David in Ridgewood, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Can you guys hear me okay?
Are you there?
Yes.
We can't hear you, David.
I'm doing well. Can you guys hear me?
All right, so David, I'm going to put you back on hold because I think I can hear the stream in the background. And you? Oh, wait. Are we not up? Hang on. David, are you there?
Hello?
Still can't hear you, David.
Hello?
This may be one thing we didn't check out ahead of the show.
All right, I'm going to put David on hold rather than hanging up on him. We're going to see if it's a problem here. David in West Covina, how are you?
That's me. How you doing?
Oh, it's our problem.
It's our problem. So while they're working to correct the problem with the audio, well, let's talk about that thing that I wasn't quite sure about.
Okay.
So you talked about how this 9/11 was portrayed by some and accepted at face value as an attack on the infidels. And the thing that I find curious about that is from the standpoint of Islam, Christians are infidels, as are Jews and atheists.
But they're less so than the atheists, right?
Well,
there are some passages in the Quran that are tolerant of Christianity because they have some of the same prophets and these sorts of things, and there are other passages that are vile and reprehensible towards Christians, right? It's another Rorschach test, as far as I can tell.
Well, so part of the problem with this is that of the book, as far as I can tell, was intended to apply to the Quran. But when I listen to, for example, Muslim apologists, one of the more famous ones, and I won't try to butcher his name on here, has said before that that he likes actually talking with atheists because the Quran starts with "There is no God but Allah," and our atheists have got the first part of that already right. There is no God, and so he likes to work from that. Whereas the other ones are actually worshiping false gods, which may be worse. And so there's obviously within Islam different streams of thought as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and try this again. David Ridgewood, you there?
Yes, I am. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Are you there? Can you hear me? Hello.
I'm told it's working. Let me try the other one. How about David in West Covina? Maybe it's just David's.
Hi, I'm here. Hello? Hello?
So we don't know yet. So anyway, live TV. This is the way it goes. And we're shackled on what we can actually discuss now. Some of the things that I would have vamped on in the past, we can't actually talk about. So setting aside that thing, we talk about this issue of truth and logical absolutes. You know, I mentioned how science gets us to not to truth, but to tentative ideas, and that it's about building models and supporting it by evidence. There was a caller last week that sent in a follow-up email, George from, where is it? Dunmore? I don't remember the place names, but and there was this discussion about faith, and it didn't go very well. Well, I think parts of it went well last week, but some of it didn't. And he wrote in to say that we have faith in science, and it's the same way. You think we're good?
I think so. Try it.
All right.
We got to keep wondering though to figure out what's going on.
So we got David in Ridgewood.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
I'm good.
Thank you for your patience.
Absolutely no problem.
Thank you, Frank.
My first call was back in February, and it went pretty well. I am a practicing Christian. I'm a Catholic. I did like the joke on the way in. It's nice to meet Don Baker. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Obviously, the answer to what you guys are saying with truth is that we have not yet discovered it. Like, as far as with the creation of the universe, it's kind of like a detective solving a murder on the first day. You know, we haven't yet discovered. You know what I mean? We're still piecing together. I mean, does that make sense?
Sure. So on that foundation,
science is hard work. Right?
Are you also saying that Catholicism doesn't know the truth about this?
Well, yes, that is correct. I mean, now.
So why would you, David? Why would you identify as a Catholic, which I presume means you believe what Catholicism has to say about this, if you don't think that they have a demonstration of truth?
That is a very good question, and I'm kind of in a part of my life where I'm looking at the facts. You know,
Okay.
I'm observing a lot of things, religious claims, the claims of atheists, your show, books by Dawkins and Hitchens and stuff like that.
Good for you. It's good. It's good to question.
So what did you have a question for us today, or?
Yes, I want to say the question, and then I want to elaborate with like 3 or 4 sentences. So
Sure,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
say the question. The question is basically, how unreasonable do you think it is for someone to believe in God? Now, if we were to run through all of the issues, I'd probably be with you. Like, Matt, I know you support gay rights. You know, I support gay rights. You know, you want a separation of church and state. I want the same thing. I don't want there to be oppression from religion. You know, but I mean, if someone looks at the facts and says, it is my opinion that there's a deity behind this, like, how unreasonable do you think that is? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10,
So
do you think it's like crazy, or?
So it would, first of all, we need to define God, and we need to define exactly what it is that they believe, because not all God beliefs and not all religions are equivalent. But I'd say that it's not something that we could easily even put a number on it. It's something I've talked about before, is that when you're trying to calculate the probabilities of something being true, if you have 0 examples of it actually being true, you can't even determine it. So when I say that I find something unreasonable or irrational, I don't try to quantify very often how irrational it is. Like, I mean, for example, I think Scientology, I think it's probably, and I'm going to get in trouble here, but I think it's probably less rational to believe Scientology or Mormonism, where we have some evidence of fraud in the creation, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily untrue. And it also, you have to consider how unbelievable are their claims. And to me, all the God claims and all the claims of specific religions, not every claim, but I mean the bulk of what comprises this, they're all unreasonable, and it is irrational to accept any of them until such time as there's evidence for them that would warrant belief. So I don't know.
I want to throw out something
think it's
too.
Crazy, though.
I want to throw out something too. That, often theists will say, talk about belief in God, and why would you pick one God over the other? Mankind has invented thousands and thousands of gods, and why is one God any more special than the other? Or was your question about belief in God in general, a God?
Yeah, it kind of was pointing to that. I mean, I do understand the argument, like why this God or why this sect of religion over that. That's a very good point. Would you agree that sometimes evidence is subjective? Like, for example,
No.
There's a difference between, let's say, 2 examples. Like, if I'm trying to determine that someone broke into my house, like, if I have a surveillance camera showing the person breaking in and taking things, or if I don't have a surveillance camera, but I see that maybe the window's pried open and there's stuff missing, maybe there's a footprint, you know what I mean? Like,
So the evidence itself isn't subjective. Your assessment of it is subjective, and you can come to various conclusions. But you're really talking about the quality and quantity of evidence for the conclusion that you're reaching. And so if you've got a video camera, that's really high quality evidence where you can watch somebody break in. Whereas we may have to, when we look at other evidence, for example, my home was broken into in November. I didn't have a video camera on it, but I am incredibly confident that it was broken into because there was a rock laying on the floor and the back sliding glass door was broken, and there was a bunch of stuff missing. The bedroom was trashed. I can't think of any other explanation for this, and I have a massive amount of similar scenarios. The police seemed pretty convinced too that it was a break-in. Am I absolutely positive? No. It could have been gremlins. But what I will say, actually, I am pretty positive and pretty close to absolutely positive, because whatever happened, my home was broken into and in disarray and things were missing. That's by definition a burglary.
okay. Yeah,
Whether it happened by ghost or real person, I don't know.
That's pretty funny. Sometimes those things are very hard to see. Like, for example, with trying to prove God or the existence of a God, and I did meet God in general before. Like, for example, I actually met someone not too long ago that was unaware that the Earth was spinning, and it can be hard to explain that to people because you know we don't actually feel it spinning. You know, like
Sure.
Is it true that the Earth is spinning 800 miles an hour to 1,000 miles an hour? But we don't feel that, and there are people that actually don't know that, and it's hard to explain it to them. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I think that the evidence for God is going to be something very hard to see. You know.
So the most powerful being in the world is undetectable, but we can measure the weight of an electron?
Yeah, so I mean, you talk about, for example, demonstrating that the Earth is actually spinning, and there's the old anecdote that, you know, what would it look like if the sun actually did rise rather than it was the product of the Earth spinning on its axis? And the point being that from the relative frame of reference, it would look exactly the same. And yet somehow we have managed to demonstrate conclusively that the Earth does in fact spin on an axis. There may be people who are unaware of it, and I know that there's the Flat Earth Society who have very different models of the universe, but we have demonstrated this to an incredibly high degree of precision, to the point that we even know, you know, how it's slowing down and all these other things. The point is that the time to believe that the Earth is spinning on its axis is when the preponderance of evidence demonstrates that this is most likely the correct model. And it's curious, and this is the point I think Don was making, that we can do this for all sorts of things, including knowing how many years it takes Pluto to traverse the solar system, even though it hasn't happened in the time frame since we've discovered Pluto.
Yeah.
And yet there's this God, or some version of God, that 60–75% of the population of the planet believe in, and many of them think they have good, sound reasons for believing in, and yet we can't seem to demonstrate this at the level that we can for these other claims. Now, the excuse that I often get, and I got it in email today, is, I got it from George when we were talking about this in email. He was saying we have faith in science, and that's the same as his faith in God. And that's preposterous, because even if you used a definition of faith to say, I believe something when I don't have absolute certainty, like the burglary or the Earth spinning, the reason that I believe that is nothing at all like the reasons people give for believing in God. And George, in his email, I hate to pick on him when he's not here, said that he believes because he was taught, and because when he looks around at the world, this is the conclusion that he reaches.
Makes sense
and that we
level,
believed
right?
because we trusted the scientists. Well, no, I don't trust scientists. I trust the evidence that's available for all of us to examine.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense and everything. I wanted to. I've been putting together something basically. This is my opinion on what atheists want for the world and everything, and you guys can feel free to correct or add to it. First of all, they want no violence from religion. Like, for example, there was a scene in, I mean, well, you guys talked about it earlier in the show, the Holy Wars, of course, and there was a scene in Slumdog Millionaire where there was fighting between these primitive people over their religion and everything.
Well, that's
And
certainly
some
one of the things that motivates me, as on a personal level, is the harm that religion does. Is something that I think, you know, is unnecessary, and something we could fix pretty easily, if only, and address and not have to have it anymore, and move on to more serious problems that will take more work.
Yeah, and I think that my opposition to violence as a way of solving disagreements doesn't stem so much from my atheism as it does from my humanism. So I don't want to put that out as this is, you know, the atheism is just about a God belief. That's it. Everything else is an addition to that. It may be consistent with it. You know, once you discover that you live in a world, or you're convinced that you live in a world without God, you still have to make decisions. And it's a lot of atheists come to a lot of the decisions, a lot of the same conclusions, because we're using similar methods. Most of the people who identify as atheists are, you know, skeptics and critical thinkers and people who value science and evidence.
Right. There is an atheist movement, and you will find some commonalities among those folks that identify themselves as an atheist, but the definition is rather restrictive.
Yeah, we're not a hive mind. I'm sure there are atheists who probably relish religious violence.
Right. Well, for the most part, most of the atheist organizations. The other thing is, it seems like that, and I would be opposed to this also, like, I don't know how to describe this, like, statements, like, for example, sometimes when talking about, should we have gay marriage, the religious right will say, oh, God, that is against God. Well, there's a problem with that. First of all, it's arrogant to say you know the mind of the divine, and the other problem is we're not entirely sure that God exists, so we certainly shouldn't be making statements about what it wants and everything.
And my response to that sounds awesome, except that I would point out that even if a God existed and we knew that a God existed, it doesn't change what's right. See, if a God actually existed and we knew it existed, and this God made a pronouncement that we need to kill all the homosexuals, that would still be immoral.
That's true. I wanted to ask a question about burden of proof. Now, Matt, you do a very good job of there's two things that have helped me understand burden of proof. There's the courtroom example and the bubble gum machine example. My question is, obviously, if I'm dealing with just a basic atheist and I say there's a God, 100% of the burden of proof is on me. But if I'm dealing with someone that, if I have this correct, an anti-theist who proclaims there is no God, what would be they acquire some of the burden of proof, right?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Well, no. Okay. First of all, if you're trying to convince someone of anything, there is an implied burden of proof there because I'm trying to change somebody's mind. When we're talking about it at the broader level of a claim about something, it is the positive claim that has a burden of proof. And this is just about what's rational to believe, not necessarily what you're trying to convince somebody else of. So I am an atheist, and I defend atheism, and I defend the weak/soft atheist position because I don't want to unnecessarily shift the burden of proof. Because if I take the hard or strong atheist position, which I've also called anti-theism, that there are no gods, that does put a burden of proof on me. And if my concern isn't so much whether or not I can actually meet that burden of proof, because for the definitions that I use, I think I can. It's that if I fail to meet that burden of proof, people who don't understand the burden of proof in the larger sense will assume that this is evidence in favor of their God. The fact that somebody hasn't been able to debunk God means that their belief in God is more reasonable, and that's simply false.
Muddies the waters.
I not only don't believe in Bigfoot, actually we'll go with Loch Ness Monster. I not only don't believe that there's not a Loch Ness Monster, or that there is a Loch Ness Monster, I believe there isn't. Because the preponderance of evidence shows that it's most probably not true. Now, can I prove there isn't? No. And so I want to make sure that the claim of there is a Loch Ness Monster maintains its burden of proof. And at a minimum, all I have to do, like in the not guilty thing, is say, I don't believe that. I'm still open to evidence, even if I believe that it's false.
Right. No, that makes sense. It's funny that I have a friend up here in New Jersey who's very into science, and his claim on the you can't disprove it. He says you can't disprove that I hooked up with Cindy Crawford.
It's one of those things where they're teaching kids in creationism courses and homeschools and stuff to ask this question over and over again. Were you there? Were you there? Were you there? Whenever anybody talks about millions of years ago or the fossil record and all this, were you there? Were you there? And somebody, I think, posted on my Facebook something I found kind of amusing, which I might have referenced before, suggesting that we say, yeah, as a matter of fact, I was.
And you can't prove it, right?
You can't prove that I wasn't, as a way of demonstrating the absurdity of that position.
I wanted to ask another question about the possibility of there being a heaven. In the Northeast, we had that very unfortunate thing with the schools in Connecticut, and of course, no one wants anything like that to happen. But like, when I see a tragedy, of course, when you see a tragedy, and let's say there are victims that died before we think they should. Like, would you prefer that there was a heaven for them to go to?
Our preference has nothing to do with it.
Well. Yeah.
It's wishful thinking at best, right?
So it depends. Would I prefer that nobody ever actually died? Sure. If there was some viable model where nobody actually died, I think that'd probably be preferable because I'd like to continue existing.
It's like the transhumanism.
As Don pointed out, my preference has absolutely nothing to do with it. And what I think I would prefer is that in the absence of confirmation of an afterlife, and given the wealth of evidence that we have that seems to imply that when I'm dead, I would prefer that we teach people about reality so that they can work to treat people right in the life that they experience and not live their life as if they're going to be able to make amends in an afterlife, or that after they're dead they'll get the answers, or that after they're dead everything will be fine. Let's work on getting the answers now and making everything fine now, and if it turns out there's an afterlife, bonus.
Okay, that makes sense. Another thing my friend said, he was talking after 9/11 when there was a lot of talk of Muslim suicide bombers and how they think after they die they're going to get virgins in heaven, and he used to say they don't even get a chance to be disappointed. I would always say, well, wouldn't you like there to be a chance for them to be disappointed? But before I go, I want to say that it seems to me that there are two very important misconceptions that the public have about both atheism and science. First of all, there's with evolution, and I'm sure I'm not saying something you haven't heard. A lot of people think that evolution states that we came from apes, like that there were apes, and from that came human. And of course, and I'll be honest, up until about a year and a half ago, I thought that too. But of course, upon further study, we had a common ancestry, and it goes back and back. And
right. We and dogs have common ancestry.
Right, exactly. Right. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, all living things.
Yeah, I have a common ancestor with the carrot.
Right. Exactly. Like we came from cells and everything.
But when people say, we came from apes or we came from monkeys, they're not entirely incorrect. The closest common ancestor between us and the other great apes is something that would be
ape-like,
recognizably ape-like, and identified as such.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I understand me, but obviously the apes are like we kind of split off, and the other group evolved and we evolved. A lot of people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And to the credit of the Catholic Church, at least the Catholic Church has managed to do a somewhat decent job of accepting and supporting evolution. So kudos to them. Now I wish they work to become a less criminal organization when it comes to hiding priests who are molesting kids, but I'd also, there's about 20 or 30 other policies that I wish that they'd change too, that are resulting in people dying unnecessarily because of the Catholic Church's perverse position on prophylactics and condoms. Yeah. People dying over this.
You know, like AIDS in Africa or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course there's arguing in the church about that, and I think that they should just let priests marry. I mean, it seems kind of bizarre that they shouldn't. The other misconception, I think you guys do a good job of this, is of course the thought that atheism is proclaiming that there is no God. And of course, that's not atheism. Or at least for the most part, it's waiting to see evidence. Then there's nothing wrong. Actually, I wanted to run a question about the argument from First Cause. I forget if I already asked this.
Sure, but this got to be it because there's 3 other lines of people waiting. So let's hit it and hit it pretty quick.
I got you. The argument for First Cause says that nothing comes into existence without a cause, but if the universe came into existence without a cause, then that could qualify the universe as being supernatural and thus possibly created by a god. Like, what's your take on that?
That's not the first cause.
Well, it's if you look at quantum mechanics, there are uncaused events, and the Big Bang Theory is about the universe at a time when it was so small it was a quantum thing, and so there's really not a contradiction there in that sense. If we have things like spontaneous radioactive decay that doesn't have a cause,
well,
in that sense.
We don't know enough about the origins of the universe to make proclamations about what can or can't happen, I think is kind of the first thing. And as Tracy's pointed out repeatedly, this idea of something from nothing is itself bizarre because there's not a nothing on which to act. I mean, and you can't act upon nothing. So we're having difficulties with the language. But if we can't get back beyond the Planck time, then everything's just a guess. And so if we're going to guess, which could be interesting, what reason do we have for thinking that the answer is, oh, there's a supernatural thinking agent who consciously made a decision. I mean, you know, of all the possible things, maybe universes maybe the multiverse, you know, idea is correct, and you've got universes popping up for natural reasons. Or maybe, because time breaks down, the notion of a beginning or a time before is absolutely absurd. So there's a lot of problems with the first cause argument and with the Kalam cosmological argument and things like that. At the end of the day, even if we granted that the universe had a beginning and it must have been caused by something that exists outside of space-time, what possible justification could anybody have for thinking that that something was a god? It doesn't even have to be, it doesn't, we've shown no requirement that it think, that it be a conscious agent acting, that it's not some process that transcends our understanding of natural laws because the natural laws don't apply at that time.
Right, so it's a classic God of the gap sort of thing, right?
Yeah, it's basically, you don't know, and you can't prove I'm wrong, and so I'm going to cling to this belief because to me, it offers the best explanation. But the reason that it appears to offer the best explanation when it offers no explanation is because it's a panacea. We've constructed a God and given it this ability to do all sorts of things that we can't even fathom. So of course it's an explanation. Magic is an explanation. It has it has no explanatory power though. You're trying to solve a mystery by appealing to a bigger mystery, and you get nowhere with that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I will let you get to the call. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks,
Don,
David.
It was very nice to meet you.
Thanks so much.
Feel free to call back.
Yeah, we've got David in West Covina. How are you?
Hi, how you guys doing?
Pretty good.
I just want to say, love the beard. Looks awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to get right to the chase. I have a question. First, I'm going to ask the question, and then I think we need to agree on certain definitions.
Always a good thing.
Okay, so the question is, how is the force which created consciousness, awareness, not a deity, not God?
So how do you know it was a force that created consciousness? Because to me, that's not a coherent concept.
Well, because there's four forces of the known universe, right?
No?
I think yes.
Okay.
There's gravity, what are the other ones?
Strong and weak nuclear force.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So those four things basically characterize and dictate our universe as we know it. So whatever that may be, those are all connected in some way. Those are causing atoms to come together to form a conscious life force, which is, for sake of argument, I'm just going to use humans because humans are the only ones that we can actually say are conscious beings, living beings.
No, they're not.
Well, I mean, just, okay, well then, fine, there's more.
Let me try to answer by making a simple analogy. Let's say you take some pieces of cardboard that are square, and you have 6 of them, and
who's you? You talking about me?
Yeah.
Like me, David? Okay.
Yeah, David. So you take these pieces of cardboard and you stick them together in a cube, and all of a sudden you have a container. Was there a need for a life force or some magic to create this idea of containment when it didn't exist before? Or is it just an emergent property of how these things came together?
Well, no, because they're created by a conscious creator. That's me.
You didn't create containment, but let me try a slightly different example.
At that point, if you're saying that I created that idea of containment, yes, I did create it.
Yeah, yes, okay. Let me try a slightly different example. What force is it? Well, first of all, this notion that there's a force that created is kind of...
I know, that's
it's begging the question.
It's reductionist question begging, but what makes water wet? I mean, how many atoms or molecules of water do you have to have before it's wet? And if all of these molecules are the same, what is it that's wet?
It's the speed at which the atoms are moving, I believe. That's what makes water.
No, wet is a property of molecules of water interacting with each other, and it is a label that we put on what that does beyond the water.
Right, it's an emergent property of the group of atoms, right?
It's what Don was getting to with the container example. It's the same thing. It's this idea of consciousness as an emergent property. First of all...
Okay, that's where I disagree. I don't believe I believe that it does emerge, but it emerges because the energy field that it's being created in is alive itself.
It's okay.
Because I know it's my opinion, but I'm arguing, I'm challenging.
Okay, so
when did it
you've
emerge?
got an opinion about consciousness.
Well, consciousness is real. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
It's a real phenomenon, okay?
It is not an extant thing, but it is a property that we identify, or at least conceptually.
Awareness, right? Okay.
Sure.
We can, and also that we can agree that humans exist that we are the universe, and we're not inside of the universe. Like, the universe is not something separate from human beings, as we're all made of the same, like,
yes.
You know, we have water inside of us, we have carbon inside of us, we have, you know, all the same stuff that is made up of all that which we call
Sure. Humans are part of the universe, and
Okay.
humans are conscious.
Right.
Now,
so, that's what I'm saying. I'm using that logic to say that the universe itself is conscious, is alive.
okay, some portion of the universe has this, is conscious.
Right.
Not
So
all of the
wouldn't that have
universe.
I'm sorry?
Not all of the universe. Some portion of the universe is conscious, right?
Okay, yeah, we can say that.
Okay,
And
because
also,
it's different if you say the universe is conscious. I mean, if you're only, you know, because
Okay,
my
so
pinky is not
whatever-
conscious.
Okay, so for whatever part of the universe that is alive, can we not assume that there is something there that says that things need to be alive at this point in time, given this environment?
I have no
That's
idea
what I'm
what.
saying. That's what I'm calling God. That's what I'm saying that God is. That idea. I don't know what it is, but that's what I'm saying that God
Why
is.
would you call that God? Because the God label carries with it specific baggage. If
Okay.
what you're doing is you're saying there are living conscious creatures that are part of the universe,
Right.
and whatever it is that is responsible for that, I'm going to call it God. Well, congratulations. I'm going to call it Verschisselmox. Now, why would we choose one label over the other? And why, if we don't know what it is, would we choose a label that carries with it a ton of baggage about an intelligent, causal, caring, creative being?
Because of that idea, that notion carries such a big burden. Just that whole idea of something that creates life and consciousness. What else would you call it? I mean, other than the natural forces of the universe? I mean,
I think that's fine.
Huh?
I think that's fine.
You know, I don't know is a perfectly honest answer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Okay, well, we agree on that.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing, David. Here's the thing. We've got a phenomenon, and we're looking for an explanation for it. And my position is that we don't yet know what the explanation is.
Okay.
And so why on earth would we label it? And if we're going to label it, why would we use a label that carries with it baggage that is more than what is necessary to answer the question?
Because I don't think that it's more than what is necessary to answer the question.
Of course
The
it is,
idea of
because
what
you don't
God
think
is
that
the creation
look,
factor of the universe.
David, no. You're using a label that is about far more than what is the cause of consciousness.
How so?
You don't think God
How is
is
that
in
more?
you don't think that when everybody else on the planet pretty much talks about God, that they don't mean something more than just
No, I think they mean something less.
You think they mean something less than just that which causes consciousness?
Again, I want to make this clear that I totally reject the God of Israel in the Bible.
I don't
That's
care
not what I'm
about
talking
that.
about.
I don't care
Okay.
about answer. No, look. When generally when people say God, do you think that they mean something less than that which causes consciousness?
No.
Do you think
no.
that they mean something more than that which causes consciousness?
Say it again? Do they think that? Say it again?
When most people use the term God, do you think they mean something more than that which causes consciousness?
Probably, yeah. I don't really know. I would say yeah.
Oh, come on now. Have you never looked at a religion before?
Yeah, but they make such small claims about God. They're saying that God is simply some
They say
some
their
guy.
God created the entire universe, controls our destiny, has an afterlife plan for us. That's a lot more than just that which causes consciousness.
I disagree. Totally disagree with that idea. I do not.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
David,
I don't think
David,
I think
David,
that's a very small point.
David,
That's a very small thing.
David, set theory. Here is the set of everything, and there is some subset that is the cause of consciousness.
I don't think it's a subset, though.
Then you're wrong. I don't see. How, you have now equated the cause of consciousness with everything.
Yeah, but okay, I understand that. But we have to look at it like that is. I would say that like I'm going even further and saying that is the purpose for molecules is to some point become
so
conscious.
Now you've added more baggage that molecules have purpose. Why would you think that?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't either. When you figure it out, give us a call back and let us know. Thanks, man.
All right.
All right. Adeya from Columbus, thanks for waiting.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
So you had a question?
Yes, 2 questions, actually. First, what is your view on people who say that they don't believe in a God, but just in case there is, after they die, they pray to save their non-existent soul, which they don't believe in?
I think it's a sad example of how religion has harmed people. It's like here's a waste of time that's happening.
So belief is kind of complicated. Belief means you accept something is true. I'm convinced that we always act in accordance with our beliefs, and so those people who are going to pray at that moment are acting in accordance with some belief. But does that mean that they secretly believe in God, or does it mean they simply believe, I might as well do this, there's no harm in it? I think it's probably the latter. And I think they're wrong, both about if they actually believe in God, but also this idea that there's not any harm in it. If it's not true that there's a God who's going to respond to prayers and stuff, and you're trying to do this safe bet thing, then you're wasting time that could be spent doing something else. It's like asking me, people who say they aren't superstitious, but they carry that lucky rabbit's foot around just in case. Well, I think it's fair to say that they're at least somewhat superstitious on some level. They probably don't actually believe the rabbit's foot's lucky, but they don't think it hurts anything. And maybe in some cases it doesn't, but I'm more concerned with, can we get to an accurate understanding of reality? And I don't think that that's the path.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good answer to me.
Okay, thanks.
The second question follows that. What do you think would, if there is some entity that they could pray in, what impact would the just-in-case praying have on the entity's decision to let him in or not?
I don't know. If it's one of those gods, like, for example, the Christian God, then I would suspect that it'd have no impact at all. If you're talking about a traditional Christian God that is expecting you to be sincere and, sincerely trust and love and do your things, then this safe bet is pretty much claiming that you think God's stupid enough to give you what you want, even though you really don't believe. Now, there may be a God out there that actually is stupid enough to give you what you want, even though you don't believe, or who doesn't care whether or not you actually believe, just give you the stuff because you asked. I don't know.
How about a genie?
Yeah, I mean...
I would prefer a genie.
There you go. Who wouldn't? Makes for good stories.
Thanks
Not
for
so
calling.
good reality.
Oh, yeah. Hey, no problem. Have a good one.
All right. Simeon from Portland, how are you?
Yes, hi, Mr. Dillahunty.
And Mr.
You
Baker.
guys started the show with a joke, so I'm going to follow suit if you don't mind.
Okay, make it quick. We're only got like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. What happens to atheist suicide bombers after they die?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They get 72 non-virgins.
They what?
72
They get
non-virgins.
72 non-virgins. Okay, bump.
Tell you what, you find me an atheist suicide bomber, and then we'll have a whole nother show, because I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen.
That's how the joke kind of began. The whole idea that there would be such a thing in the first place. Anyway, the reason I called was because in response to a topic I heard a couple of weeks ago on the show, which is that there was a teacher who had students step on a piece of paper with the name Jesus on it. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Okay, and I thought about that, and it occurs to me that if I was in that position, I'm an atheist, but if I was in that position, I would actually refuse. And the reason being is that I find that any kind of coercion from one person to another to make a theological statement is unethical. And I think that was a point that may have been overlooked, that as, you know, to be credible humanists, I guess, in this world, that we should...
I completely disagree.
Oh, really?
The point of the exercise was to talk about symbols. The actual person doing the teacher was a religious person, a Sunday school teacher. This was part of a thing. Would you? It doesn't matter. The point was that the label written on a piece of paper is distinct from the concept and distinct from the thing. It's not. Okay. It's not the sort of thing that I think anybody should object to, especially when that's the point of the exercise, to show how sometimes we actually have this aversion to how we treat or mistreat labels that are completely separate and distinct from it. It's like the thing of Sam Kinison talking about how he used to roll joints with paper from the Bible because it was really good paper for that. And people were like, oh my gosh, it's just shocked. Well, you know, or you don't burn the flag, or you don't burn a Bible, or you don't burn a Quran. Well,
Cartoons
this is
of Muhammad.
The book, the Bible. I've got a Bible. I've got several Bibles, actually. And it wouldn't have bothered me to see a Bible burn even when I was a believer, because what I believed in was not those pieces of paper.
Right.
And so, but there are some people who are like that, who if you burned a Bible, burn it in effigy or whatever else, they just get outraged.
Taking things too literally. Right.
That was the point of the exercise, was to show that distinction.
Right. I don't have a problem with that. The distinction I'm making is between whether the instructor stepped on the paper himself or whether he told his students, you have to step on the paper or else you flunk the class or whatever.
Well, first of all, there was no you do this or you flunk the class. But second of all, I don't see why it makes a difference what the teacher does. But the thing is, the student that was suspended was not suspended for not participating in the exercise. He was suspended for threatening the teacher. And we're completely out of time. They're putting the credits up on the screen. Thanks everybody for calling. Thanks, Don, our studio audience, and we'll see you all next week.